Welcome to Beyond the Coverage. I'm Chris Horner, and I'm back, guys. It's the 2024 season. It's my first video because I was on vacation down in San Diego with the family for about 6 weeks. Riding dirt bikes there at the Pala race track there for the motocross riders, and then finishing up at the Swami's ride. The last weekend I was down there, I started getting a little bit of cycling fitness from riding my bike every day and using my night lights after riding the motocross track all day long. I was out training with my lupine lights, getting in a little bit of extra training every day, so I didn't miss any training while I was at the motorcycle track. But of course I've missed some videos, and now I'm back and it's the start of the season. Tour Down Under, we got to see a little bit of nice racing over there with Stephen Williams taking that Stage 6 victory and the overall classification. Isaac Del Toro finished third on GC for UAE Team Emirates. The Mexican rider, 20 years of age, got to keep an eye on him and see how he does once he gets over to Europe. So I'm having a little bit of problems when it came to being in the right place at the right time there at the Tour Down Under. Once you get over to Europe, it's a lot harder to place yourself in a good position before you start the final and last climbs. So that's something to keep an eye on. But when we start looking at the sprinters, Sam Welsford, 3 victories, winning stage 1, 3, and 4. That last stage 4 where it got a little dicey and he lost his lead out man, Danny Van Poppel. Danny Van Poppel did a spectacular job of waiting up for a sprinter. Then, of course, leading him out for Sam Welsford to get his 3rd victory and take a nice victory there where he had to do a little bit of work, and a little bit of communication between him and Danny Van Poppel was worth going back and watching that stage 4 sprint finish final there, which came out spectacular for 3 victories for Bora Hansgrohe Sam Welsford. But can he do it when he gets over to Europe? Well, every time when I watch the Tour Down Under, that's what I always ask myself when you start seeing the younger kids riding so well there. Can they bring it over to Europe? Well, that's what we'll have to keep an eye on. But there's bigger fish to fry here up on Beyond the Coverage because, of course, with 4 big riders on 4 different teams, that means Primoz Roglic, who left the Visma Lease bike, makes an exciting 2024 season, what I think will be one of the most exciting season that we've seen since 2020. Now, we saw some big-time racing in 2020 when the COVID year hit and everybody was fighting out and battling for scraps for every mile of racing. But when we get here in the 2024 season, the only thing that's upsetting me, I got a little tear in the eye because we have to wait a long time before we see those 4 big riders come together, because the only time all 4 get together is at the Tour de France. This starts June 29th. If we back up the calendar a little bit, you go to April for the Basque Country and we see 3 of the 4 riders get together. Jonas Vingegaard, Primoz Roglic, and Remco Evenepoel all start the Basque Country together. Now, I won the Basque Country in 2010, so it's special to my heart. But I also truly 100% believe that with the exception of the Tour de France in July, when we're talking about the GC riders all being 100% on form, it's really only that April time of the season when we see all the GC riders 100% on form, because the whole professional peloton is only on form during the classic part of the season, which you got to add in the Basque Country there as part of the classic part of the season, and July. Every other time, even when you're talking Dauphiné, there's some GC guys who are still trying to find some training to get ready for the Tour de France. They're not 100% at the Dauphiné. Tour of Swiss, same scenario. Maybe they're just coming back from injuries or coming back from a relaxed vacation a few weeks before the Tour of Swiss started, so they're still trying to find their form at the Tour of Swiss before we get into the Tour de France. But when you show up at the Basque Country, it's pretty rare if you hear one of the top GC riders say, well, I'm just using this for training. That doesn't happen in April because of the classics are right there with Amstel, Gold, Flèche Wallonne, and Liège-Bastogne-Liège coming up. So you know they're on 100% form there at the Basque Country because they're getting ready for the classics too. That time of the year, and then of course in July, is the one time during the season at those 2 months when you start seeing all the GC riders 100% on form, and they're not just saying, well, hey, I'm here at Dauphiné, but I'm just trying to ride through and get some training for the Tour de France. That doesn't happen in April, so we know with Primoz Roglic, Remco Evenepoel, and Jonas Vingegaard, there's going to be a big battle there at the Basque Country, and then it's going to continue at the Dauphiné between those 3 riders. Then we get the Tour de France, and of course, my #1 ranked rider in the world, Tadej Pogačar, of course, will join those guys at the Tour de France. But what is he going to be doing before the Tour de France? Well, we already know. He's announced that he's going to do the Giro and try to win the double. We haven't seen that since Marco Bontani in 1998, so it's been a long time. But if there's a rider that can do it, we know, of course, Tadej Pogačar is that rider because he can come in with training and be fit and ready for every race of the season, it seems like, since about 2020, certainly 2021 and on. The Slovenian is always on fine form at every race he shows up for. When we start looking at a schedule, what does Tadej Pogačar have? Well, Strade Bianche is going to be a big one, and one of his main objectives at the start of the season to be on form. You know he's going to want to win there because he's already won in the past. And then he's going to want to go to Milan-San Remo and get a little redemption after last season's loss to, of course, Mathieu van der Poel, who soloed that last 200 meters and then down the descent, was fearless through the descent to take a solo victory at Milan-San Remo, while, of course, the Slovenian had to give up a shot at being able to win because he didn't get much help going down the descent, and Mathieu van der Poel was spectacular through every corner. We look after Strade Bianche there for the Slovenian, Tadej Pogačar, and of course he has Catalonia coming up. It's going to be a new race for the Slovenian there. It's one I don't believe he's ever done before in his career, so he's going to have a shot at adding another World Tour victory onto his resume if he can win there at Catalonia. And again, it won't be against Primož Roglič, Jonas Vingegaard, or Remco Evenepoel, because the only race that he's going to line up against one of the other four favorites in the World Tour races is going to be Remco Evenepoel when he gets over to Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Then we're going to see that battle that last season cost the broken wrist there to Tadej Pogačar at Liège-Bastogne-Liège and allowed Remco Evenepoel to go solo all the way to the finish to take a fine classic victory there, one of the 5 monuments of the season. So we got to wait all the way until we get to Liège-Bastogne-Liège to see Tadej Pogačar have to battle one of the other 3 favorites there when we're talking at the World Tour, and that's going to be at Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Then after that, he's going to disappear and try to win at the Giro. Now, when we start looking at the Giro, there's some drama there to be held because Kian Utelbrooks, the other Belgian rider that went spectacular in last year's Vuelta a España, top 10 on GC. But if we look at highlight a couple stages there for Kian Utelbrooks, remember he was pulling the field there at the Vuelta a España, trying to bring back some of the favorites on the last and final climb. Now he's left Bora Hansgrohe after Primož Roglič leaped over there. Kian Utelbrooks left and went over there to Visma Lease bike. So it's going to be interesting to find out if Kian Utelbrooks can find that other ounce of 2 to 10 extra watts that he's going to need to be able to perform well at the Giro. Now, we saw what has never been done in the 2023 season, where Visma Lease bike, then of course Jumbo-Visma, won 3 Grand Tours in the same season with 3 different riders. Sepp Kuss, Primož Roglič, and of course Jonas Vingegaard winning the Tour de France, means that Jumbo-Visma last year in 2023 had a season that no one has ever been able to duplicate. But can they duplicate this next season when we mean that Kian Utelbrooks, can he win the Giro against Tadej Pogačar? That's one thing to keep an eye out throughout the early part of the season is to see if Kian Utelbrooks can lift his level a tad bit higher so that he can get on the same level as those 4 gigantic riders, Primož Roglič, Remco, Jonas, and Tadej Pogačar. Can he reach that form? I don't know, but you know Kian Utelbrooks was unhappy at Bora Hansgrohe to jump out of his contract and go over there to Visma Lease bike and battle out and try to win the Giro d'Italia for them to keep their streak going. I don't see it happening, but he's young and he is on the move and coming up. So that is going to be the big competition, I think, for Tadej Pogačar when we get to the Giro. Now, the big question, though, and what's on everyone's mind, is between the Giro and the Tour de France, you have 5 weeks. Those are probably the most difficult part of the season that I see for Tadej Pogačar. Remember, he doesn't necessarily have to win Strade Bianche. He doesn't have to win Milan-San Remo. He doesn't have to win Catalonia. But if he wins the Giro and if he gets that 5 weeks right, he has a shot of doing something that hasn't been done since 1998, and that's to win the Giro and the Tour de France. So for me, in my book, after you look at the Giro d'Italia, the next big obstacle for Tadej Pogačar is the 5 weeks between the Giro and the Tour de France. He has to be able to recover from the Giro, and that is going to be really hard to do if a rider like Kian Utelbrooks can come up on form by that changing of the teams and going over the Visma Lease bike. If he can find that extra form and really push Tadej Pogačar, that is going to be one of the key factors for Visma Lease bike's Jonas Vingegaard at the Tour de France. Can Kian Utelbrooks get a little bit better to put a ton of pressure on Tadej Pogačar throughout that first 3 weeks of racing at the Giro before they get to the Tour de France? And can Tadej Pogačar recover enough after the Giro to come into the Tour de France? Now, the Slovenian has shown that his training at home means nothing in terms of a detriment to his form. Normally, he comes into races 100% ready to win. We saw that last year when you start looking at Liège-Bastogne-Liège and he has the broken wrist. Then he shows up at his national championships, of course, wins those. And you say, well, they're not big races, but then comes to the Tour de France and was ready to win the Tour de France, at least throughout the first 4 days of racing. After that, once we get into stage 5, things started to get a little twisted and out of shape for Tadej Pogačar when we're talking about Col de Mary Blanc, where he got dropped. So how does he avoid that happening again? Guys, that is the biggest question. And what I believe during those 5 weeks between the Giro and the Tour de France could be the most crucial part of the season. If he wins the Giro, those 5 weeks of training right there and rest and recovery, it's hard to come back from a 2-week break. So he's going to have to go with like a 1-week easy break and then, of course, 4 weeks building up. Because if you have 4 weeks of racing, or 4 weeks, of a break before the Tour de France starts after 1-week vacation, you're really not going to train hard the last week coming into the Tour de France. So it's really only 3 weeks to get you prepared for the Tour de France. And that's assuming he only needs a week worth of recovery after the Giro finishes. So if the Giro doesn't go too hard on him, the Slovenian could easily be set up to go into the Tour de France on 100% form. But let's say you go in to the Giro and all of a sudden Wout van Aert's on exciting form, lights something up, or there's some crashes or some time loss. Could be some damage control that Tadej Pogačar has to do at the Giro. But I don't see that happening. And I think in my book right now, when we're talking about beyond the coverage, I think the most important period for Tadej Pogačar is going to be those 5 weeks between the Giro and the Tour de France starting, where we're going to see a legendary 2024 season really come together at this year's Tour de France, and big-time battling between Remco Evenepoel, Primož Roglič, Jonas, and of course the other Slovenian, Tadej Pogačar, the #1 ranked rider in the world. Well, the season's just getting started. Stay tuned, and I'll bring you some more beyond the coverage. Some more, of course, the butterfly effect is coming once I figure out which one of the races I'm most interested in watching all the way through. Like I said, Tour Down Under, nice race to win, but the big important stuff's getting ready to start once we get over here to the European peloton and we start seeing the real racing and the battle all come together. Like and subscribe, and I'll have some more videos for you real soon in the near future. See you then.